Hello everybody and welcome back to GSL English. My name is Gideon and in today's lesson we are going to look at exactly how to start thinking in English. So as always, it's my pleasure to give you all a very warm welcome back to our class today. Now, today's lesson is completely focused on how to think in English. So we're going to look at some steps that will really help you to start doing exactly that. But firstly, why? Why is it so important that we start to think in English? Well, when you think in your native language and then speak English, you are effectively translating your thoughts from your native language to English before you end up speaking, before you actually express whatever it is you were going to say. And the reality is, this slows down the whole process of speaking because we have to go from thoughts, translation, and then to actually speaking out loud. And it makes the process a lot more complicated. It doesn't allow us to speak freely. It doesn't allow us always to speak naturally because we're having to translate first. And it can really slow down our speech, which in turn affects our fluency. It makes it difficult to think on your feet. When somebody asks you a question, it makes it very difficult to just answer naturally because first we have to formulate the thoughts in our native language, translate it in our head, and then speak. But on the other hand, when you can just think in English, it allows us to speak so much more freely. It allows us to speak naturally. It allows us to express our opinion and say whatever we want to say because we're not having to first translate and then speak. We just go for it. We just speak straight away because we're not having to think in two languages. And that is why I want to help you to be able to think in English. It makes speaking so much easier. And in turn, our fluency will improve greatly. Let's be honest, we are always thinking. No matter what, every human is always thinking. But when it comes to English, what we want to do is change the process. We want to change the process from translation to just simply thinking. So today I'm going to show you exactly how to start thinking in English. We're going to look at 5 steps. And these are steps that we can follow whether we are a beginner, whether we're intermediate, or maybe we're advanced. We've got a good vocabulary, we've got a good understanding of the English language, but we still find that when we are talking, we have to translate in our heads first. So these 5 steps will help you to stop translating and start thinking in English. So let's start with step 1, and that is to start small. What do I mean? Well, thinking in English might be something new to us. As I said, we might have been learning English for years, but the idea of thinking in English is a new concept. So, as with anything new that we start, the best idea is to start small. And that's exactly what we're going to do. One way that we can do that is simply just by thinking about what we see around us. Maybe we're walking to work. Maybe we're taking the underground, we're traveling. Start thinking in English about what you see. For example, maybe you see a family playing in a park. Just think in English. Think to yourself, what are they doing? Maybe you're ordering a coffee and you're waiting for it to come to you. Think about what you are seeing in English. What is the process that they are doing? Think about it in English. Maybe you're traveling to work and you're people watching. Everybody loves to watch people. Think about it in English. Don't think about it in your native language. Think about it in English. Think about the vocabulary that you are seeing in English. Think about how you would describe what you are seeing in English. Think about how you would describe the process of whatever somebody is doing in English. Basically, start small. And as we do this, as we start to just think about what we see in English, it gets our brains accustomed. It gets us used to the idea of not thinking in our native language, but thinking in English. So that is the first step I want you to do. Whether you go out today, whether you're in your living room or wherever you are right now, think about what you see in English, not your native language. The reality is this might seem strange at first, and we have to keep reminding ourselves, no, don't think in my native language, think in English. But as I said, the more we get used to it, the easier it gets, and the more we just start to naturally do it. So that is step one. We want to start small. Give that a try, and then we can move on to step two. Step two is to immerse yourself in the English language. And what do I mean by that? Well, I mean to completely surround yourself with everything English. So that might be listening to English music, listening to English podcasts, watching English movies, TV series, listening to English audiobooks. Whatever it is, I want you to completely surround yourself with the English language. And this is essential because I don't want you to just think about English when you sit down and study, which is great, but we want to just have English being fed into our minds as much as possible. And we just enjoy it. So, find some music you like, listen in English. Find a podcast you like, listen to it in English. And as you're listening, the idea isn't to learn perfect grammar, learn new vocabulary, which is great if we do. But the idea is just to be feeding your brain with English information. And when we do that, we are naturally processing in English. And that's exactly what we want to do. That is what we mean by immersing yourself in the English language. Absorbing your minds with as much English information as you can throughout the day. And we can include this in our daily routine. For example, maybe we're traveling to work. Just listen to something in English. We're not kind of focusing on improving our grammar or learning new vocabulary. We're just taking something in. Or in an evening, maybe we put the TV on. Watch something in English. Watch something you enjoy. And just feed yourself with English information. Maybe we're cooking. Have the English radio on. You get the idea. We want to immerse ourselves in the English language. By doing this, our brains are constantly processing English information. And in turn, that helps us to start thinking in English. And as a bonus, when you do this, you will find that your pronunciation naturally gets better. You'll find that your sentence structure starts to improve. You start using vocabulary that you think, where on earth did I get that from? It's just from that immersing yourself in the English language. So that will be a bonus as well. But the idea is by surrounding yourself with the English language, you are constantly feeding your brain with English. And that's what we want to do to help us to start thinking. So give that a try. That is step two. Absorb, immerse, surround yourself as much as possible in the English language. Step three is an interesting one. And at first you're going to say, no, I'm not doing it, because this is the step that when I tell people, they just think, oh, no, I don't like this. Maybe you do. Step three is writing. I want you to start writing. How often when we talk about writing, we think of exams, we think of essays, and we just think of stress. I know I do. But that's not what we're looking for. We're looking to use writing to help us to think in English. How can we do so? Well, it's often very true that we find it easier as humans to express our opinions in writing. once we get going with writing, talking about what we think, how we feel, we often find that a lot easier than speaking. So when we talk about writing to help us think in English, I'm not talking about writing an essay, which is going to be checked for perfect grammar, for perfect spelling. It's going to be marked. Not at all. Nobody is going to see this writing. The process is for you to simply express your opinions on paper, because by doing that, you are thinking in English. And I'll be honest with you, I don't care how you do it. I know some people say pen and paper is the only way, but if you haven't got access to that, get writing on your phone in English, on your tablet, on your computer. Whatever it is, to me, it doesn't matter, because all that matters is the process of you writing down what you are thinking in English. And you will notice that as you do this, as you get used to just writing about what you think, writing about your opinion, you don't always translate. You'll notice that you start to not translate before you write. You just write. And that's what this process is all about. I don't want you to worry about perfect sentence structure. That isn't the focus of this exercise. I don't want you to worry about perfect spelling or grammar. I just want you to write down what you think, what you feel. There are a few ways we can do this. A way that quite a few of my students like to do is in the morning, they just write down about the day before. So they write about what they did. They write about how they felt. They write about what they liked about the day, what they didn't like about the day. Basically, you're just writing a journal or a diary about the day before. And this is a brilliant exercise because no one's going to read it. Nobody's going to see it. It's fresh in your mind and you just write. You just write about what you did, how it made you feel, something you liked, something you disliked. But you're just writing about what you think in English. That is all that matters. Or another way that we can get writing is by taking a question and simply writing out our answer. For example, maybe we can take the question, are goals important? So are goals important? You can simply just write down your thoughts, opinions, and be completely honest. Whether you feel that goals are important. That's just an example question, but you get the idea. And as I said before, we're not looking at perfect spelling. That's not what this exercise is about. We're not looking at perfect grammar, sentence structure. All we want to do is get used to expressing our thoughts whilst thinking in English. And that is something that we can do every day. So step 3, start writing down what you think about anything in English. Step 4, and I think this is quite an obvious one, but it is so true. I know I go on about this all the time, but speak, and then speak some more. Speaking is essential to everything involved with the English language. If you want to improve your pronunciation, get speaking. If you want to improve your fluency, get speaking. If you want to start thinking in English, get speaking. And the more we get used to speaking in English, the more we get used to the idea of speaking out loud, the easier it will be for us to think in English. Because the more we do it, the more we start expressing what we think in English, we'll notice that translation process starts to go down. You realize that you're not translating as much as you used to, because before this, you have started small. You have started to immerse yourself in the English language. You've started writing down what you think. So now when you're speaking, you realize that you're not always translating in your head. You're just speaking exactly what you thought in English. So I want you to talk with friends, talk with family members, talk with your teacher, talk as much as you can. But what about if you don't have those options? Talk to yourself. That's right. I want you to talk to yourself. How can we do that? Because we might feel weird talking to ourselves, but once you get over the weirdness of talking to yourself, it's actually a brilliant exercise. And I encourage you to do it. So find somewhere comfortable where you don't mind talking to yourself and talk about your day. Talk about what you saw today. Again, take a question and answer it. Let's take that question we looked at earlier. Are goals important? Express your opinion out loud. And doing this on our own is a great thing because we're not worried about making mistakes. We're not worried about what people think of us. We're not worried about speaking perfect English, which doesn't exist. We're just focusing on expressing our opinions. And when you do this, I don't want you to translate in your head. I just want you to go. Think in your feet and answer to the best of your ability in English. If you feel comfortable, do it in the mirror. Even better, if you feel comfortable, record yourself and listen back. In that way, you can hear how you need to improve. And once you start getting used to doing that on your own, you will feel more comfortable expressing yourself at work. You will feel more comfortable expressing yourself with friends and family, being honest about your opinions because you're used to thinking and then speaking in English. And the reality is, we will make mistakes when we speak out loud. That isn't a problem. I make mistakes all the time. Everybody makes mistakes all the time. Perfect English doesn't exist. Watch this video here for more information about that. But don't worry about making mistakes. Speaking freely, speaking naturally is much more important than perfect English. And that leads us nicely into step 5, which is simply be patient. We just have to be patient. It takes time, but be consistent. Unfortunately, I wish it was. I wish this was the case, but thinking in English is not just a switch that we turn on. It's not just something that one day we're able to do. It's a process that takes time. Some days will be good. Some days we'll be thinking in English and we'll feel really good. Other days won't be as good. And we think, what's wrong with me? It's the way it goes. Some days are good, some days are bad. But it just takes time. And be patient and don't be too hard on yourself. If some days you can't think of the right word, I have days like that. It's not a problem. But the idea is that we just get used to the process of thinking in English. We want to try to make that conscious effort to think in English rather than translate to English. We just want to get used to that. And maybe we notice that there is a certain area that we struggle to think in English. We find it difficult. Maybe it's talking with a client at work. If we notice that we're finding it difficult to think in English in that area, do some research on it. We can go home and study some vocabulary. We can practice again in the mirror, speaking out loud. Talk to friends and family about that situation. So if we highlight a certain area that we find difficult to think in English, practice it. Make that perhaps the focus of our study. And the more we do this, we will just build this skill to think in English. But that whole process takes time. It's not a switch that we turn on, but just be consistent and enjoy it. If this is a process that's going to take a bit of time, we want to enjoy it. So just relax. Don't be too hard on yourself. Don't always look for perfection. Just enjoy the process and let it come naturally. So there are the 5 essential steps to thinking in English. Firstly, start small. Look at your surroundings and just think about it in English. Whether that's just one word at a time, whether that's a sentence, whatever it is, just start small and get used to the idea of thinking in English. Step 2, immerse yourself in the English language. As much as possible, I want you to surround yourself with English. Constantly feed your brains passively with the English language. Listen to podcasts, music, watch movies, watch series, whatever it is. Just feed your brain with as much as you can in English. Thirdly, get writing. Write about what you think. Write about what you feel. Don't translate in your mind. Just write every day, whether it's 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Just write down what you feel. your opinion about something. That way we get used to just expressing and seeing our thoughts on paper or a screen. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Step 4, probably one of the most important ones, get speaking, not translating. So I want you to speak as much as possible, but think in English. Try to get used to not translating. Just think and speak naturally, freely, and this will really improve your fluency. And step 5, just be patient. This isn't going to happen overnight. Just take your time, be consistent with these steps, and you will gradually see yourself improve and start to naturally think in English. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed this video lesson today. Please use these 5 steps. They will help. Be consistent with it. And if you find it difficult to think in English or you've got any questions, just let me know in the comments. But also, I would love to know what has helped you. So let all of us know in the comments. Share your thoughts, share your suggestions on how to think in English. I would love to hear them. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great day and I'll see you all very soon. Have a good one, guys.